Thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. My name's Tom Miller, and I'm the former CEO of ALI Solutions and one of the original founders of that business back in the mid-90s. I'd worked for 17 years in a variety of roles for the company, and currently I'm the VP of Analytics at Noble Systems, as Noble had acquired ALI last September. Now, today's webinar, titled Using Analytics to Drive Contacts and Conversions for Inside Sales, focuses on leveraging data analytics to better target prospective buyers and convert sales at a higher rate, as well as best practice strategies to help your organization achieve its business objectives. And as noted as we started the call, just a quick administrative note before I jump in. We've muted all the lines for the call, so please hold questions until the end, or rather submit them online, and time permitting, I'll cover both the questions that have been submitted during the registration process as well as those submitted online. So today's presentation is designed for sales organizations across a variety of industries and really should be applicable whether you have 5 or 500 sales reps in your business. I'll start off with a brief overview of how analytics can and does play a role in the sales organization today, and then I'll discuss some of the best practices that we've observed and we've experienced across our customer base. Along the way, I'll share a few examples of how leading companies in different industries are operationalizing analytics and flexible campaign management to increase their speed to lead and convert more contacts to sales. And then I'll conclude with an overview of the analytic technology that's available today. And since analytics can mean different things to different people and really can describe a variety of approaches, I think it's important to define the type of analytics that will be discussed today and really the two main categories most applicable to your inside sales organization. First, data analytics and predictive modeling. It's really an approach that's used to understand a profile of a prospect and then correlate aspects of that profile to a certain outcome or a behavior. So we describe that as predictive analytics, and you can think of it as using data in a forward-looking process. Then the second category is data mining, which does include speech analytics, or really what I'd refer to as traditional business intelligence approach. Data mining involves the analysis of data to determine patterns or to identify specific events evident in the data. So you can think of data mining as using data in a historic or a backward-looking process. But in both cases, analytics here are used to help you make better business decisions and take better actions as part of your sales process. This slide now shows a high-level graphic to help visualize how analytics fits within your sales operation today. And most of you, I would assume, are gathering and retaining prospect records in either a CRM system or some form of prospect database, or you may be sourcing new leads from your website or through inbound calls, some form of social media, and you're initiating sales contact over the phone or potentially through email, text, or some other proactive communication channel. And analytics and decisioning sits right in the middle of those two processes. It's the glue that connects the prospect data with the appropriate contact action or channel of selling. So analytic processes are used to gather, aggregate, and fuse this relevant prospect data that may be housed inside your business as well as external publicly available information. It's providing the segmentation, the filtering, and decisioning ability to use that data and other models, like response models or revenue models, to make better decisions more consistently. And so just with that kind of high-level overview in place, now I'm going to switch gears and talk about best practices for leveraging and applying analytics. And I've organized really this presentation and our experience and thoughts on best practices into the top 10 analytic essentials for any inside sales operation. So aligning operational and business metrics, making information-based decisions, creating a holistic view of the prospect, identifying similarities and differences, balancing conflicting objectives, managing to a group of one, reducing cycle time, establishing a performance feedback loop, continuing to test and improve, and then simplifying and automating. So those are the 10 essentials we'll cover, and what I'll do now is talk to each one more specifically. I'm going to start off with operational and business metrics because while this may seem pretty straightforward, it's just so important to get right. In your sales operation, you essentially have two types of performance metrics. There's operational metrics, which are typically used to manage people and operational processes, and I think are typically shorter term and provide more immediate feedback. So as an example, calls per agent, contacts per call, leads per contact are all different operational metrics. Business metrics refer to higher level metrics or goals, and they're typically defining what is important to your business, such as sales or revenue or cost. And so again, while that may seem real straightforward, it's absolutely essential that you align your operational and your business metrics so that achievement of the operational metrics always, every time, supports success in the business metric. I think way too many times we find clients or new clients that have defined operational metrics, and maybe they're actually hitting those operational metrics only to get frustrated by lack of business performance or their ability to hit the broader business goals. Information-based decision-making really represents the foundation of analytics. Most companies today are making information-based decisions at some level today. I'm sure that each of your companies does this in some way or fashion. But it's critical to always look for opportunities to leverage data and analytics to increase both the consistency and the accuracy of your decisions, your sales strategies, your policies, your campaigns. Many times you have very talented managers that are using data and their own personal experience to make good decisions today. But because we're talking about one individual, one manager, and because it's judgmental, those decisions are going to vary from manager to manager, potentially even day to day or week to week, shift to shift, etc. So in turn, if the use of analytics can help you to aggregate the entirety of that management team's experience. And by doing that, you're able to create more consistent and effective decisions over time. So you're really taking the best in breed across that management team, the best of the experience, and applying it through the use of analytics. And it allows you to validate performance and results so you can keep making better decisions over time. And to make more information-based decisions, the more information, the better. So always look for opportunities to get the most complete and holistic view of your prospect. Because the more you know and the more data that can be aggregated and combined, the better opportunity you have to set the right strategy, use the right channel of communication, and make the right call at the right time. There's really two types of data. That which is available at the time you're making a call, and then the performance or the result information that you have once the call has concluded. And really here, when we're talking about this view of the prospect, we're mostly talking about data available just prior to making the call, the real-time, up-to-date profile information about that prospect that you can use to make better decisions on how to handle the sales approach. And in a business-to-business environment, I think it's also very important to think about gathering information at two different levels, both data on the prospect company and data on the individual contact within that company can prove to be helpful in setting up these campaigns and making the right strategy decisions. And the good news here is it doesn't need to be hard and it doesn't need to be expensive. There's plenty of good technology in the market today to help you efficiently gather and store lots of information. Here's a good example. So GoDaddy is a customer that provides, I think, a great example of leveraging data to improve their sales and service results. So while they're best known as an industry leader in domain registration for websites, GoDaddy is also very effective at using data to drive cross-sell and upsell opportunities for as many business customers. So they not only are using data to better qualify leads, but they're also using that data to prioritize both the calls that take place and the specific product or service offerings that are made in that call. So they're making data actionable, they're making information-based decisions, and as a result, they're realizing significant increases in their sales representative productivity. I think part of knowing your prospect and making information-based decisions is understanding the similarities and the differences between your prospective customers. Typically, this is going to be a blend of both business intuition and data analysis. So again, going back to the core strength of the people knowledge that you have inside your organization, as well as an analytic approach to looking at data. And understanding similarities and differences will enable you to create common groups. And once you establish a common group, you can approach that group in a similar fashion. Or you can differentiate your sales approach to groups that are different. And again, I'd say here's another example where most companies do this at some level. Grouping by industry is probably most common. You may handle retail different than healthcare, or financial services different than internet. Other opportunities to create common groups may include size of the business, public versus private, the geography, and potentially tenure, if this is a tenure of the customer, if this is a cross-sell or upsell opportunity, or potentially the types of products or services that they use today. And again, what we're doing and what we're talking about is finding these common groups so that you can create unique campaigns or strategies or intensity in the calling, the number of calls that you're making over a period of time, and that you can adjust that for each group appropriately and accordingly. I think once you've created these unique groups, then you're sort of faced with the challenge of managing conflicting priorities for the groups. Probably the most common method for dealing with conflicting priorities is to manage priorities at a group level and in some sort of matrix approach, and that's what this example shows. A matrix approach can help determine a strategy for dealing with these conflicting objectives or conflicting priorities. So in this simple matrix, a product is being sold which can be financed, so that you have people that may buy or may not, you have or businesses that may buy or may not, and you have eligibility for credit or not. And the real conflict here, when I talk about conflicting priorities, the conflict in this example is that prospects most likely to buy the product are not necessarily most likely to be credit eligible. And so that creates a challenge in how you're going to structure and prioritize the campaign. The prospect group is both high likelihood to buy and high likelihood of qualifying for credit are segmented into a unique calling campaign that would then receive top priority. It may receive the greatest number of resources. It may receive the greatest intensity in terms of sales action, contacts, calls, etc. Prospects that have both a high likelihood of, a low likelihood of buying and being credit eligible are grouped into a unique campaign that receives the lowest priority. So here you've got a case where it's unlikely you're going to convert the sale, and even if you did have a chance of converting it, they wouldn't be eligible for the financing. And so therefore, again, they may receive the lowest level of resources, the least intensity as it relates to the sales effort. And then you're left with the two groups in the middle, which can be, in this case, collapsed into a single calling campaign. Again, this goes back to similarities and differences, and in both cases here, they're neither high priority nor are they very low priority, so they kind of fit in the middle and they can be blended in the same campaign. And I'm sure many of you work with matrix-based strategies every day. You probably do use rules to apply a matrix decisioning strategy not far off from this one in your business. And this can be a very effective way to deal with conflicting priorities, but while it's effective, it's not ideal, because within each one of these groups, you have a wide range of individual values, meaning some of the prospects, for example, in the credit eligible group, are really on the borderline of being eligible. But because you're making decisions at a group level, they just get grouped into the eligible campaign. And so it's very difficult to differentiate for those individual prospects that sit on the border of any one of those cells. What is ideal is to be able to manage these conflicting priorities at the prospect level and not the group level. By managing at the individual prospect account or record level, you're essentially creating a group of one, and you're evaluating the specific conflicting value or priority for every record. At the record level, you have the ability to combine multiple and conflicting values to produce what we would call an objective function value. One single value per record that can be used to set the priority for calling that account record. While this is an ideal approach in building calling campaigns, you cannot easily make decisions on thousands or, depending the size of your business, even millions of records with a simple rules approach. So, to effectively handle large volume, you need to leverage some form of optimization or a sophisticated sorting process, where you can make individual decisions on thousands of records in a matter of seconds or minutes. In this example, we look at combining the sales value of the prospect with the likelihood of getting an eligible buyer or a right party contact. Generally speaking, you can note that the smaller value prospects have a higher likelihood of contact, while the high value prospect is generally a low contact percentage. This example also highlights a common case where some prospects or contacts are specifically reachable or contactable at a certain time of the day, while a small number may have roughly the same chance of being contacted in every hour of the day or every time period of the day. I guess the final note in this example is pointing out the difference between sorting and optimizing. So if you took the approach that you wanted to sort in each time period, if you took the approach that you're going to sort in each particular time period, and you only had resources to make one call in each time period, you'd select record 3 to call in the morning because it has the highest value. That would leave you records 1 and 2 to call in the afternoon and evening. If you were to optimize the schedule, you'd actually look at all the available combinations of value and select the best overall combination. You'd make a different choice here, and you would select record 2 in the morning, therefore leaving account records 1 and 3, which have a greater contact rate for the afternoon or evening. And so the bigger point here is both sorting and optimization are effective campaign strategies depending on your specific objectives of the campaign. You know, speed is so important in today's business environment, and so it's critical that as you map out the use of analytics in your organization, you focus on speed, on reducing cycle time. And that means focusing on faster and more timely updates to the prospect data that you're leveraging, faster lead to contact, establishing contact by better targeting and prioritizing leads, establishing a technology environment that fully facilitates flexibility and supports real-time change and adjustment, and having the right feedback loop to quickly process performance for improvement. And I'll cover that concept of a performance loop in just a minute. So here's another good customer example of best practices in focusing on speed. So in this case, it's speed to lead. Career education provides higher education in the form of doctoral, master's, bachelor's, associate degrees, and certificate programs for 90 campuses as well as over the internet. Career education uses a sales team of highly trained counselors or enrollment personnel. And they have observed that when a prospective student is called within 10 minutes or less of making an online inquiry, they're more likely to be qualified as a lead for the enrollment personnel. They focus on a speed-to-lead metric that measures the duration of time elapsed from the time of the online web form submission to the actual contact with the prospective student. And they're leveraging real-time campaign decisioning to be able to make that happen. And so as a result of that focus on speed to lead and the use of this analytic decisioning technology, they're achieving massive improvements in both productivity and lead qualification. I'd mentioned performance feedback loop just a few minutes ago, but I wanted to come back because it's an important concept. It's critical to any analytic strategy or process to be able to effectively, efficiently, comprehensively, and accurately capture the results and the performance of all the actions that are taken. And this is really important in order to provide feedback and make necessary adjustments to the approach, to your strategies, to be able to access the performance of the models and to rebuild new models at the appropriate time. Unfortunately, this may be one of the biggest challenges we see when we first walk into a new customer. All the focus often tends to be placed on how to define the campaign, what the offer will be, who will be targeted, how often they will be called, etc., but not on the capture of performance or on how that performance and those results can be fed back and leveraged for the next campaign. And with your performance feedback loop solidly in place, now you're well positioned to continually test and continually improve your operation, your approach, your strategies, your campaigns. Best practices today takes advantage of champion and challenger testing, where prospects are randomly assigned into different campaigns, with the champion campaign representing the standard approach or strategy, and the challenger representing a proposed change. And then running those campaigns, tracking the results, and reporting on the strategy, on which strategy is more effective. Sometimes the champion sort of retains its status as being the best performing policy or strategy, and sometimes you're finding differences, adjustments to the campaign approach or campaign strategy which works more effectively, and so you're making those changes accordingly. Best practices today would have sales operations running a challenger strategy on perhaps 20% of the prospects all the time, so that you're always looking for opportunities to improve. And technology today can enable this champion challenger testing. It can enable blind testing inside the operation across the sales department, and it can be easy to implement and easy to track. And at the end of the day, none of these best practices matter if you can't implement them. It is essential when setting up and executing your analytic strategy that you focus on opportunities to keep it simple and find ways to automate. Look for opportunities to centralize data and make it readily available. Think real-time decisions, even if your current process is more batch-oriented today. Focus on solutions that are business user-oriented, so you're not reliant on IT for even the smallest of changes. Focus on solutions that allow you to configure and adjust and don't require some form of custom coding to change a strategy or to change a campaign or to add in a new data source into your process, which frankly may not have existed or become available when you first put the process in place. You know, in the analytics world, or as an analytics business, we talk a lot about the concept of sophistication without complexity. Good solutions do not need to be complicated. The best analytics in the world don't need to be hard to understand or implement. You can have a sophisticated business or analytic strategy that is simple to understand, simple to communicate, and simple to execute. And quite frankly, that's what's going to produce the greatest benefit to your organization at the end of the day. So just in summary recap of these 10 points, and I would say it's unlikely that any one of your organizations is fully executing on every single one of these 10 best practices, or that each one is 100% relevant to what you do today. But hopefully there are a few that do hit home and that you can go back and find ways to either execute or to improve on. In working with a number of sales organizations, I think a lot of businesses, particularly inside sales operations today, are in the process of laying out and defining their strategies for leveraging a more analytic approach. So I think it's few and far in between that feel they've run the full curve on this analytic plan. I think a lot of it is foundational. It's a lot in the planning stages. But I think as you go about that, if you can keep these best practices in mind as a vision or as an end game, hopefully it's helpful as you work through the execution of exactly how that strategy will play out. So before I move into the Q&A, I did want to provide a very brief overview to the analytic technology that is available from Noble today and is being used by dozens of organizations, and again, ranging from large to small, to execute many of these best practices that I've talked about in this session. Start with Vinceo as our core analytic engine. It efficiently combines internal and external information. It standardizes, normalizes prospect data. It integrates with Salesforce.com as an example and other prospect databases, and is used to deploy response and revenue models and determine the right action or channel to sell through. CallTech is an analytic application that automatically develops custom models to predict the likelihood of contacting an eligible buyer each hour of the day, as well as the probability of response to the sale once a contact is established. And it's used to create an optimal calling schedule to increase sales productivity. OnQ is patented technology that provides real-time integration into automated dialers that range from our own Noble dialer to most other common dialers and contact devices. And it executes campaign management and call compliance requirements throughout the calling day. And then finally, Noble provides a full contact center platform offering, which includes automated dialing, preview dialing, click-to-dial, predictive dialing, IVR, and automated messaging. Okay, with that said, that concludes the presentation part of this webinar session. At this time, what I'm going to do is go back to some of the questions that had been submitted prior to this session. And let me go through that, and I'll also check for online questions as well. Okay, so first question, please show examples of flexible campaign management. For example, what does flexible mean in this context? So campaign management here is referring to the various segmentation, filtering, and prioritization of how prospect records are called or how they're contacted as part of the sales process. Campaign management is the technology that's managing the unique campaigns or the groups of prospects, and then applying the relevant rules. Could be compliance rules, rules for prioritizing the calling, recalling, potentially redirecting contacts from one channel, such as a call by a rep, to another channel, such as an email, and really the flexibility in ensuring that you can leverage any source of data or make any change to those rules through configuration and in real time. And that's what we mean by campaign management. The next question here is, how do you determine customer contactability by phone, and when is the phone the wrong method? So that's a great question. Because as we all know, I think, it's so much harder today to get the right people on the phone just to answer the phone. I think the key goes back to leveraging data and analytics to do your very best to target contacts at the best time of the day. That solution is available today using prior call history and other prospect info. We can estimate the likelihood of contact at every hour of the day, and in turn we can use that information to create an optimal calling campaign. Also, data and analytics can be used to estimate or predict the likelihood of response by contact channel. So again, phone versus auto message or text or email. And the key here is really having the performance feedback loop to be able to correlate the outcome of the contact attempt in a specific channel to the profile of the prospect at the time you're deciding what channel to use. So with that performance, you can model response for each one of those channels or each method. So you can use it for both. The next question is, where do you get the info for doing the analytics? So lots of sources available today. This is something that just gets better sort of every day. I think there's more data available. Internally, you're looking at system of record, like your CRM system, or again, perhaps your prospect database. In addition, you can capture data from a variety of operational systems, so automated dialers, IVRs, even like a customer service system would be an example. And you know, the thing about these operational systems is a lot of time the data is it's identified or it's created, but it's often not housed or stored, at least for long periods of time, but it can be. And it can be very useful when you combine it with other prospect data. So for an example, we work a lot with prior call history information, which can be useful for predicting contacts and response. Externally, lots of choices too. So you have a lot of commercial options. In addition to just buying marketing lists, you've got D&B data, Hoovers, Fusion, personal credit information, depending on who and what you're selling, utility and payroll data, demographic data if it's a B2C sale. And often these external sources are good ways to really augment limited data that you may have internally, and all of them can become part of the analytic process. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just checking questions here. Okay, so I have a few different questions on dashboard analytics, so I'll kind of aggregate those. You know, and I had mentioned data mining as one of the key forms of analytics that are applicable to inside sales organizations. I think dashboard analytics falls within that category at some level. Obviously, we did not speak directly to dashboard analytics in this webinar, but probably the best thing to do, I would be more than happy to follow up directly with anyone that would like to dig deeper, and you can contact me. I've got, again, that info@noblesystems.com address up on the screen right now. If you send an email to that address with my name, I'm happy to share what we can on the dashboard analytics concept. So I think we're pretty close to up on time here. That was the majority of the questions that were submitted. I'd like to thank everybody for their time today. Really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time talking about analytics with you. Certainly, as I mentioned, if you have any follow-up questions, please email at the info@noblesys.com address, and you can send it directly to Tom Miller, and we will try to get you all the information that we can. So again, thank you, and this will conclude today's webinar.
This does conclude today's conference call. You may now disconnect your lines. Presenters, please hold the line.